And so when I talk about the ideas of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, I do want to highlight that these women who represented, I think, women's rights, women's suffrage in America at this time period, they were betrayed, right? They had fought for universal suffrage, and the individuals within Congress decided that it was going to be too hard to work for this idea of universal suffrage. You would not be able to get all the men who were voting at that time to agree for both black men's suffrage as well as women's suffrage, and that includes white and black women. But I want to highlight that even when they were betrayed, right? It wasn't a thing in which they kind of reformed, coalesced, and decided to push together again for universal suffrage. They immediately went to Democrats who supported slavery. They immediately started to fall back on racist tropes and racist ideas because they felt as though that would be their way to demean the people that were going to get, quote unquote, the rights that they deserved first. And because of that, I feel as though it delayed the inevitability of white women's suffrage and black women's suffrage into the two time periods in which it occurred, right? The 1920s and then 1964 and 1965, right? But it is something to highlight that there was a legitimate setback to this idea of who has the right to vote. And instead of building with the individuals that they had formed in the American Equal Rights Association in order to go towards this idea and to keep fighting together for our particular rights, they decided, no, we are right. We are white first, and we should receive any benefit first. And if anyone ever seemingly gets acknowledged before us, we need to shut it all down. And I will also highlight that when it came to the compromises that were becoming increasingly obvious in the 14th Amendment, right? We're talking about like Thaddeus Stevens, we're talking about Frederick Douglass. These men who were advocates for universal suffrage then said that black men should get the right to vote, and that should be the starting point from it. And again, my issue is that Frederick Douglass, Thaddeus Stevens, I think at that time were trying to push towards what they could actually get through. They felt, and in response to that, you had Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, right, who are not the only ones, but just the prominent ones I want to focus on, immediately destroyed this idea of universal suffrage in order to promote limited suffrage. And at any time in U.S. history, when one particular group is fighting towards a particular issue, it is easier to ignore them unless you have like a mass amount of people that are also in support of the ideals that you're espousing. And so I think it was a strategic mistake, and I think that they fell back on their whiteness because they felt betrayed. But the problem is that in a betrayal with your people, I don't think you throw everyone under the bus, even if you are betrayed. You work with your group and you continue to work towards this. So I'm going to continue to find more stuff on this, but it is very important to realize it. Now, if you did make it to the end of this, please let me know anything that I've missed, right? Let me know any facts that I should know about prominent women's rights activists during this time period. I am going to continue to look into it, right? And let me know if there's any considerations that I'm missing when it comes to this compromise when it came to the 14th Amendment, and then later on when it came to the 15th Amendment. But I think that this does follow my train of thought, that whenever push comes to shove, and whenever the rights are being litigated and compromised on and thought of, white people who have not dealt with their inherent racism, right, will fall back on whiteness to the detriment of not only black people, right, and this is also including other races, but then later on, their own struggles for recognition and rights in this country.